Hey y'all, it's your boy Rich, and welcome back. Today, we'll be talking about children's shows. Now you're probably wondering, why children's shows? Well, I'm pretty sure at some point in your life you've watched one of these shows at some time or point or another. So, when we talk about these shows, we're going to talk about the positive and negative viewpoints of each show. Now let's get started. Arthur. Arthur was a show that originated in the 1990s and was created by a man named Mark Brown. The show was based on his childhood and he wanted to recreate it for other people to see. The show ended up becoming a hit that lasted for over 20 years. For me personally, Arthur was a good show because they not only aimed the show at children, but for adults as well. They would talk about things that both audiences could relate to, and that's what made the show so great. There was also some good jokes and one-liners as well.
Buzz me, Mr. Goopy. DW, please move your big, enormous, large, gopher-looking head.
The only bad thing I can say about Arthur is its animation over time. The animation started to look blocky and a little stiff. The quality of the storytelling also started to decline as well. They tried to keep the show running for as long as they could, but it wasn't the same as before, and the writers just looked like they ran out of ideas. Eventually it got to the point where they had to axe the show and let it be.
It didn't fly for 1 second. It's not my fault if you made a plane that can't fly.
I told you not to touch it!
Barney the Dinosaur. Barney was a show that was created in the 1980s and was originally made to entertain the creator's son. Cheryl Leach, the creator, saw that her son had an interest in dinosaurs, so she made one for him. I mean, he started out as a dark purple piece of shit, but he eventually glowed up. Barney tends to get a lot of hate, but I don't think he's all that bad. He taught kids the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, and is pretty chill for the most part. The only really bad thing I can really say about Barney is his voice. He went from sounding like a high-ass Santa to the most sus character out there. Like, how do you go from this
Barney is a dinosaur, a dinosaur, a
to this?
Pretty orange flower is the bird of paradise Tracy needs for her party.
Now I'm starting to see why people hated him so much. Sesame Street. Sesame Street is a show that was created back in 1969 by a man named Jim Henson. It's a show that's been kind of hanging around for the last 50 years, and I think even your grandparents might even know what the show is about. Sesame Street has impacted millions across the world, and it doesn't seem like they're slowing down. The only true issue I have with Sesame Street is their use of characters. Sesame Street has a tendency to kind of leave some characters in the back burner while tending to some other favorites, like Elmo and Abby. I mean, Elmo's fun and all, but no one wants to see him fight for Rock.
Rocco says that he wants the oatmeal raisin cookie.
Rocco? Rocco's a rock, Zoe! Rocco won't know the difference!
Yes, he will. You can't have that cookie, Elmo. Rocco wants to eat it.
How? How is Rocco gonna eat that cookie, Zoe? Tell Elmo! Rocco doesn't even have a mouth! Rocco's just a rock! Rocco's not alive!
Then again, maybe not. Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry are basically living legends. They've been around for so long, the presidents from the last World War remember who they are. The one thing about these two was that they were always on site no matter what. For example, Tom would just be minding his own business and Jerry would just come mess with him. Then boom, they are already fighting. And keep in mind, these two never talked. They were just ops to each other from the beginning. However, it's pretty obvious that Jerry is over Tom 50-1. Still wonder to this day how Tom's alive after all that shit. While there is nothing really wrong with Tom and Jerry, they tended to use blackface in some of their cartoons. They're not the only ones guilty of it, but it has caused controversy in recent years. Bear in the Big Blue House. Bear in the Big Blue House was a show that originated on Playhouse Disney. The show had a lot of similar elements to Sesame Street, mostly because they came from under the same company. The bear was more of a calmer version of Barney. He would dance and everything, but he wasn't as off the walls as Barney was. A lot of the characters in the show was cool too, except that mouse. He was just stingy as hell. Overall, the show was good. It was good-natured, it was entertaining, and it was educational. However, When the actor who played the moon died, everything just kinda fell apart. The cast just became unmotivated after that, and the show ended up declining. They tried to do a little reboot with Breakfast with Bear, but it was kinda trash. In the end, the show kinda just faded into the wind. Between the Lions. Between the Lions was another show that originated from Jim Henson Company. Yeah, I know, Jim Henson is everywhere. Its show format was also really similar to Sesame Street, and even some characters have made cameo appearances. The show was about lions who owned a library and loved to read. They would focus on stories that help viewers read and learn. They had likable characters, good books, and just like most Jim Henson shows, very educational. I actually found some of the books that they read really entertaining.
Cliffhanger, hanging from a cliff, and that's why he's called Cliffhanger.
As far as I can remember, I don't think Cliffhanger ever got off that cliff. And the people in the helicopter are the most disrespectful people I've ever seen. Like, you can't help my boy out? I know you got some space in that helicopter of yours. Anyway, the show was a 10 out of 10. But, just like Sesame Street, the downside of the show was their use of characters. As the seasons went on, favorable characters started to disappear from the show. It kinda started to get a little bit predictable, and the spark just wasn't there anymore. After a while, they just ended up pulling the plug. Caillou. Now, I usually don't start off about the bad things about a show, but I'm gonna tell you right now, Caillou was a straight menace. I swear that man was on demon time 24/7. When it came to the books about this kid, it said that he bit his little sister instead of pinched her like in the show. And the worst thing is, his parents didn't do anything at all. Like beat young boy's ass. But yeah, Caillou really wasn't a likable character. The show over time became a little bit better as Caillou started to mature, but he still was kind of a little bit of a brat. Once Caillou's BS slowed down a bit, the show actually wasn't too bad. It was educational and pretty decent, I guess. Although there is a rumor that Caillou had cancer. It's probably the reason why his parents let him get away with so much. Reading Rainbow. Reading Rainbow was the most goated show. Like seriously, it's really underrated. The show started back in the 1980s and was made to encourage a love of books and reading amongst children. Most of the episode topics were based on the stories that were read within the show. They also gave kids books to read at the library. I actually found some of the books that they were talking about. And the best part of all was that the host was black! You see, back then, black people weren't represented in a positive light within television. So to see on TV a black man teaching kids how to read, man, that's inspiring. Reading Rainbow's only downfall was that they just didn't have any money to fund the show for any longer. Plus, my man's LeVar was kinda getting a little older. And even though he wanted the show to last forever, it just wasn't meant to be. The Magic School Bus. The Magic School Bus was a show that originated in the 90s and was made to get kids more into the world of science. So, the writers gave the kids something to relate to and made it a field trip experience. To see the world of science, they were literally getting a big ass bus and have the bus transform just to see it. And trust me, that concept paid off. The show was considered one of the best in the 90s and was even good enough to get another reboot. The only thing that wasn't great about the show was the reboot. The reboot didn't even have Miss Frizzle in it. It had her sister as the host. And the characters weren't as great as they were before. Like, damn, you didn't have to do Miss Frizzle like that. Overall, the new show just isn't as great as the old one. However, I learned that there's a new movie coming out, so maybe it's something to look forward to. And that's all the cartoons I can name off the top of my head. There were some that I forgot to mention, like Sid the Science Kid and his crazy ass friends. But I'm like really tired. So for now, that's all the cartoons I'll be talking about today. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I'm out. Peace.